Hi, and welcome to another episode of Functional Tech Podcast. Today, let's talk about a plugin, Postie, P-O-S-T-I-E, Postie plugin. It's the best I've found, and I've checked everywhere, and other people have said the same thing. And I'm going to tell you about a few peculiarities and what I consider bugs. But it's still the best plugin to use the email function to post to WordPress. Otherwise, you have to use the WordPress basic functionality and a cron process or something, and it doesn't give you certain features for video and audio and images that Postie does. So even with its few problems now and then, there's pretty good support. There's a lot of people that use it, and there are forums out there, and you can usually find a solution to any problem you have if you have one. Don't want to get you started wrong. It worked really well for me for a long time before I had an issue, and it's probably because I stress things out. I try to use it in ways that sometimes it wasn't designed. But Postie, at the WordPress site, I'll put a link in the podcast text. Here's the description of the plugin and what it does. Basically, what it allows you to do is email in your post to WordPress and either post automatically or go into draft. That's in your setups, your choices. To use it, you have to start out by setting up in the settings writing right here, settings writing in WordPress. You set up an email account at your mail server. I set up announce at RockyMountainPlaces.com. Now, you're supposed to keep this secret. You don't want anybody emailing in post. However, I will show you how you can pretty much limit that ability to yourself. Then you have your password for your email account. I've X'd mine out here. And you choose a default category where your posts are to be posted. So that's what you set up in the WordPress side. Once you have this set up, you go into Postie, and you have a lot of options here, you notice, but the first one is your mail server setup. POP3, that's my time offset for where I am. Then you set up the same settings here that you did before, and you pick a frequency of checking your email. It will check and pull in posts. Actually, this doesn't make a lot of difference, as I'll show you in a few minutes, because I pretty much use it immediately after I email in certain posts. But if you're going to just have them come in occasionally, you can have it check daily. You can have it check as often as every 10 minutes. I'm going to go with manually here. And you save your changes. User, you can set up who can email in a post. Now, there have been some issues talked about on the web with this. You can set it up by the role of the person on the site, editor and author, as well as the administrator can always post. You can put in authorized email addresses. I have had some issues with this. You have to be careful. You may have to play around with using an email address at your host site, which in my case is RockyMountainPlaces.com, and I did authorize this other address to email in as well. However, I have found that it works best if I use my Jim Kimmons at RockyMountainPlaces.com email address to email this stuff in. But it does work with Gmail as well. I have allow anyone to post, but unless they know the email address, they can't. Your message, you can set up certain rules for your messages. You can start right out with this as it comes out of the box and not mess with anything, and you're in pretty good shape. However, you can put some tags in to tell it where a message starts and where a message ends. That way you can put an end in front of your signature so that your email signature doesn't end up in the post. Or you can also put some text in the bottom, signature patterns that rule out email signatures and will keep them out of the post. You just have to play with this. It's too much to do in a podcast, but I guarantee you can figure it out. and get this thing doing really well for you, sending your posts in by email. Then you can set up how you want it to treat your images. And again, right out of the box, this is pretty much right. You can email in video and audio. And the templates that are set up already, I've never changed those. They are exactly as they were. Though I really don't email in any video and audio. I do email in images. Attachments, they go right in. They attach to the email, and then they come into the post with little icons at the bottom. That's an Adobe PDF. So you can see that there's a lot of things that you can send in via email with Postie and end up being posts on your blog. In another podcast, which will be longer than this one, I'm going to do some really interesting things with Evernote and sending in posts that were gathered from Google News feeds in a feed reader and automated to go to Evernote automatically and then email in. But I'll show you what that looks like when it gets there. Let's see, where am I here? Here I am. I have a little process that gathers news feeds by state for the Rocky Mountains. And here's Colorado. And it gathered these feeds and it emailed them, with ifttt.com. If you're not familiar with ifthisthenThat.com, ifttt.com, just look. I think it's the podcast just before this one, or one of the 2 or 3 just before this one, and watch that, and you'll see how you can get from a news feed, a Google feed, from a feed reader into Evernote. So I have a feed reader collecting these in Evernote, and it actually appends to the post. So it starts, if there's nothing in there in Evernote titled Colorado News and Views, it starts a post, or it starts a note, and then it appends as it finds feeds. And I can go in whenever I want, daily, weekly, whatever I want to do. Usually it's daily because these all came in one day. And these are feeds, the excerpts and the links to the actual articles. Evernote, I can email those from Evernote into WordPress as a post, which is how this got there. So this is how that one looks. No images in these, but you can also email in images. So Postie is extremely useful to add content to your WordPress blog via email. Another thing you might use it for is if you have a collaborator, an assistant, or someone that you value their content and they're not really a WordPress person, or you don't want them logging into your site, you can actually set up for them to email in a post. Everybody's pretty much into using email. They know how to use it. If they use Gmail, they probably know how to insert images. Same thing in Outlook. So if you tell them, look, I can set it up where you can email in your post, they're perfectly comfortable, whereas they may not be in actually having to get a log into WordPress and figure out how to set a post up. And you can have them come into draft and you can edit them before you let them go live. So that's Postie. It's a very useful plugin. It's free, of course, and there are a lot of things you can do with it. Emailing from the field with your phone, you can email in posts. There's just a lot of different things you can do with Postie. A very valuable plugin, and you should check it out. Thanks very much for attending another podcast, Functional Tech, and come again.